Hello, everyone. I'm Dijon,
And I'm Aiara.
and welcome to the Mustardcast, the podcast about the art of storytelling and how it's used across different mediums. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see our channel grow, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. As usual, we'll start what media we're consuming. You can start. Make sure to save your comic stuff for the comic section.
Can do. I've been super busy lately, so I haven't really been able to do much. I've been playing Pikmin, Katamari. That's about it. I had so many things that I wanted to watch and get into, but I didn't have the time this weekend. So I'm trying to make time this upcoming weekend to do stuff. So yeah.
I had to binge some stuff this morning because over the weekend I had a lot of stuff to do because I had to get ready to go to Philly for my great grandmother's 80th birthday ball, as it was. And that was fun. I haven't been to Philly since I was a wee lad, and saw a lot of family members I haven't seen in a long time. So that was cool. I'll probably try to go out to Philly with my family more often because my mom and my aunt goes out there pretty often because they know everybody out there. I don't really know everybody out there like that, but
That's real,
um,
that's real.
this morning I finished up Final Fantasy 16. I had plenty of opportunities to finish it last week, but I just didn't feel like playing it. But then as it got closer to the podcast, I realized, oh wait, I'm close to beating the game. I need to beat it. But I'll talk more about that later. Rewatched Spider Verse for a third time in theaters. I was supposed to go see it with a friend, but time got messed up, so I ended up seeing it by myself. I'm not gonna lie, I fell asleep on it a little bit
Oh dang.
because I was tired when I was in there. If I was there with my friend, I wouldn't have fell asleep for sure. But I was low key a little bit tired when I was in there, so I fell asleep on it a little bit. But I saw the horse scene that people were saying in
Ah.
the movie. I saw it. He rides a horse, and everybody's chasing him, and they all groan because he makes some type of stupid joke or something. It's based on the way that like the scene is set up. Is definitely going to be that they combine every version of that scene together in the like digital or home release.
Yeah, probably.
I also started watching season 2 of The Bear. I think I've only watched the first 2 episodes so far. The Bear is a show on Hulu about this guy who used to work at like 5-star restaurants who goes back to Chicago, his hometown, to run his deceased brother's business, his restaurant. And yeah, it's really good. It also gives light insight into like how restaurants work. It's like a not a sandwich shop necessarily. It's like a I don't even know how to really describe it. I guess the carry out. I guess the closest comparison I have for something in Baltimore is just it's like a carry out.
Hmm.
Um, Also, in terms of anime, uh, started watching. I finally subscribed to Crunchyroll, and I'm using this opportunity to catch up on Demon Slayer. I watched the first episode so far. The first episode was like an hour long, or like something around there. Every episode after that is the usual like 23 minutes. But yeah, it's like Table is in a league of their own. Actually, let me stop. I'll get to that in the animation section. I'm getting ahead of myself. I also watching Jujutsu Kaisen and Bleach, but like I said, I'll get to that in a second. Um, let's just hop into it now. But actually, before we start talking about the anime, um, let me. Have you seen all of Arcane yet, or you still in the middle of watching it? Like, what are your thoughts?
I'm still in the middle of watching it. I am liking it so far. As much as I avoided it and did all that song and dance, I am enjoying it. Ugh, no, I'm kidding.
I'm
But yeah,
imagining that Simpsons meme where
uh,
I don't remember how the meme goes exactly, but we're like Bart's in the middle of the classroom and they're like, say the thing.
yeah, say the thing, Bart. Yeah, that's me right now. Arcane is good, but I'll have more complex thoughts on it when I finish it.
Where are you so far?
Yeah. Huh?
Where are you so far?
Uh, like in the middle of the second episode, I
Uh,
think. Somewhere thereabouts.
yeah, it's a good show. I'm excited for you to see the rest of it.
It's very good. Very good.
But yeah, first episode of Demon Slayer, Swordsmith Village arcs, real good. I've read the entirety of the manga. It's a good story. It's not the most complex story. I feel like I don't want to talk trash about this anime. Demon Slayer's good, but it's definitely the animation that really makes this show what it is. Like I said, Table is in a league of their own. They the way they blend CG backgrounds with 2D characters is just no one does it better than them. But Mappa comes close, and in Jujutsu Kaisen season 2, And the first season as well, they do the same thing where they mix 3D backgrounds with 2D characters, and
Mhm.
yeah, they do it almost just as well. This season is focusing on Gojo's past. It takes place in the past when Gojo was still a student at the Jutsu Tech. So I'm excited to see this. I'm also fully caught up on the Jujutsu Kaisen manga.
I was about to say it's funny because I started reading the manga like a long time ago, like long time ago. Was really enjoying it, and then just kind of like dropped it, and I don't know why. So now that season 2 of the anime and whatnot is out, I'll probably try to get back into it because I really enjoyed Jujutsu Kaisen. I think for me it was the thing of I couldn't really follow what was going on because there was just like so much. But I'm definitely gonna try and get back into it because I keep seeing stuff about season 2 on my feed because all the artists that I follow on Twitter, um, they all just so happen to be in the Jujutsu Kaisen also alongside the stuff that I followed them for. So it's like, oh well, now I gotta watch it. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen is primarily a battle shonen, so I'm excited for the fights this season. There are gonna be some good ones, especially towards the end. But yeah, Bleach is back, baby. Part 2 of the Thousand Year Blood War arc. You know, if y'all don't know, Bleach, my favorite anime slash manga of all time. It's the greatest. It's the goat. Uh, um, they're showing a lot more of Ichigo, Rukia, Renji, and Byakuya's training that they do towards the beginning of this arc, and they're setting up a lot. They're setting up potentially doing a lot more with Ichigo's new abilities than they did in the manga, and that's something that Kubo has said that he wants to do in the anime is to expand on things that he couldn't in the manga because of his health at the time. So I'm excited to see the canon changes that they make to expand on the story. And yeah, also animation by Studio Pierrot, real good in Bleach. Easily the best the animation's ever been in the show. So moving on to My Adventures with Superman. So this couldn't have come out at a more convenient time for me after reading so many Superman comics recently. I've been talking about it almost every episode about how I love early day Superman. And in this show, Clark is an endearing klutz. In this, it's more earnest, whereas most of the time in comics, it's purposeful so that people don't know he's Superman. And, that's just how he should be. And Lois is a
Right.
hungry reporter. And Jimmy is a lot different from any version I've ever seen, but he's still very fun with his conspiracy theories. And the art style is great, very anime inspired. And yeah, the the only criticism I would have of the art style is that the line weight tends to be a little bit too thin. Did you notice that after I said it last time we talked about it?
I did.
Sometimes the line
It
weight
does.
it's a little too thin. They need to go a little bit thicker on the line weight, but otherwise it's beautiful. People have been Some people, very small but loud group of people, have been up in arms about the depiction of Superman's powers in this,
Oh
using
yeah.
like blue, electricity and blue energy, comparing him to the Flash. Like, this is Superman, this is Flash. But I think that it's cool and different, but not that different. Because they're likely pulling something directly from the comics that happens at some point. Like, I think in the '90s this happened where he in the comics was split into two in Superman, and one of them was blue, one of them was red, and their powers became more like energy based. And also in the comics, they brought it back recently in the comics where his son essentially has kind of like a Super Saiyan state where he burns all of his solar energy at once and he turns blue. Like, this blue energy starts around him, and I think that might be what that's what they're doing. They're gonna bring in even more anime influence, that Dragon Ball influence, and give him this kind of like when Gohan turns Super Saiyan 2, there's lightning around him and with the energy, and they might give him that blue Superman transformation that his son has in the comics, and essentially give him a Super Saiyan transformation, which I think would be really cool. And I'm interested to see how they change his powers because it seems like they're setting up to do something different. So yeah, Superman had a magical girl transformation in the second episode.
Yeah.
The whole twirling and the camera spinning around him and the energy,
Whatnot.
it was cool. Um, I wonder if they're gonna do that more when he transforms, or if because they did show him like just straight up taking a costume at the end of the episode. So I wonder if it's just if he'll like go into like telephone booths or whatever, or if they'll have him do the magical girl transformation every time.
I, me personally, I hope he does the magical girl transformation every time because I don't watch many magical girl animes, but they do have a soft spot in my heart. I enjoyed that bit so much. So much. Like it makes so much sense, but then it was just like silly enough where it was like I was laughing, but it's like yeah, essentially. Like if you really think about it, Superman is kind of a magical girl.
Yeah. Um. So I want to talk about Deathstroke. So Deathstroke is one of the main villains of this show. If you didn't notice that white haired dude is Slade Wilson, Deathstroke. Um, I don't know if you watched it with captions on, but they say his name is Slade.
I did. I did watch it.
Yeah, it probably says it in the credits too. But I found out randomly on Twitter. I think even before I watched the show, and I think that's what was like. Okay, I need to get up and hurry up and watch the show.
Right.
Because why is Deathstroke in a Superman show? That doesn't make any sense. So.
Yeah, that's what everybody on Twitter is saying, right?
A lot of hardcore comic fans like to point out that Deathstroke is a Teen Titans villain, first and foremost. And that's not just a cartoon thing. It's a thing in the cartoons because Deathstroke was quite literally made for the Teen Titans comic.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was, and he has his most interesting dynamics with those characters. And while this is true, he has become more than that over the years. Because he's a mercenary, allows for him to fight various different DC heroes, but there's a difference between fighting and having meaningful interactions. With that said, my problem with Slade and this is that it could have been Bloodsport, who is very similar to Deathstroke, but the key difference being is that he's a Superman villain, whereas Deathstroke isn't. And the reason that didn't happen most likely is because this show is probably in production around the same time as The Suicide Squad was in production, the movie by James Gunn, which is the movie that made Bloodsport a mainstream like character and villain. I'm not gonna pretend like I knew who he was before the Suicide Squad, but now that I know who he is, I'm like, well, he's very similar to Deathstroke, and if you're gonna use a character like Deathstroke, why not use the version of that character that is quite literally a Superman villain? But I think it's understandable why they didn't, because they probably just didn't know who he was when they were making this. And honestly, that's the problem with Deathstroke in general. He gets used in place of lesser known characters who are similar to him and are actually villains of that specific hero. And that's because he's popular and casual fans just want to see him fight everyone, especially Batman. Despite the fact that he is a Nightwing villain. So if you want to see Deathstroke fight Batman, just have him fight Nightwing. It's a very similar thing. But yeah, I'm sure he'll be a fine addition to the show. He's just a weird one. But yeah, how you feel about the show overall?
So I'm not in the comic sphere very much. I enjoyed it so much. I was one of those people that's like, Superman is boring. I don't understand the appeal. But after watching this, I can definitely see like why people like him so much and why he's so popular. And then also I love the like little ragtag dynamic they're setting up between him, Lois, and Jimmy, right? Jimmy?
Yeah, Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah. I love that like ragtag dynamic, because you don't see that in TV shows a lot nowadays from what I like noticed, like the ragtag triplet. And it's one of my favorite tropes, so to see it done well here, I love it. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's the thing about Superman. Everybody want to say he's boring, but all the people who say that are people who have literally never consumed any Superman content a day in their life.
This is true. I'll fully admit that.
They're just talking based on, popular, criticism of the character. He's a very fun and interesting character. And yeah, as me, a person who values like hope, the fact that his character is a body of that is a part of why I like him so much.
It's real.
But yeah, moving on to Nimona. Nimona was amazing. And
fantastic.
Yeah, it continues the trend of 3D models with 2D textures and effects that has been sweeping the animation landscape. And it was just real good. The story depicts, essentially universal of otherness, though the obvious ones depicted are by the characters in the stories, like being gay or gender nonconforming or even classism, with the knights only being people who are descended from
Soulsborne,
the
yeah.
first knights of those of that realm. Um, but anyone forced to feel different due to societal norms could easily see themselves in this story. Um, I also love worlds that combine the old and the new, especially medieval with modern technology. It's
Oh, that was like my favorite
yeah,
part. The fact that it was like, and the balance it struck between it was like, it was great. It was fantastic.
yeah. It's why I like Ruby a lot. Ruby does that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what are your general thoughts?
So I loved it. I cried. I cried. That thing of like universal otherness definitely felt that. Like this movie connected with me probably more than other movies that try to touch on the same topic. uh Nimona felt very transcoded to me, and
Oh,
as a
for sure.
trans person, I was like, hold on, she's kind of spitting because that's what I feel like, and it was like to see how I feel about like my own identity and such represented on the screen like that so blatantly. I was like, dang, it really did be like that. It did not help that it was like 2 in the morning while I was watching it, so I was a little sleepy, and I'm like, I'm in here bawling. Like this movie was great. And now I have to go read the comics because I enjoyed the movie so much, and I want more. I want more of them.
Yeah, in the story, Nimona is constantly like Ballister at first is, constantly calling them a girl, and then Nimona's like, I'm not a girl, I'm a shark, or like, I'm not a girl, and transforming into something else, and and always
I'm
doing
Nimona, and
that.
I was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah, that's
and
so real.
towards the end he's like, this is Nimona, this isn't whatever you're saying or they are. Yeah, I loved it. It was real good. So this movie was actually saved by Annapurna, which is mostly known for their, being a video game production um, company.
Oh,
But the Mona was thought to be lost after the formerly Fox-owned animation studio Blue Sky was shut down by
oh,
Disney.
I didn't know they were blue sky.
Yeah, in 2021, despite being 75% complete with the film. Uh,
Dang.
the shutdown was said to be due to the economic fallout of COVID-19, but it was saved by Annapurna and Netflix after Andrew Milstein and Robert Bard, former Blue Sky co-presidents, refused to let it die. It was then reanimated from scratch by animation studio Double Negative, and the previous iteration of the film was based had some watered down queer themes and scenes, and didn't include the kiss at the very end between Ballister and Ambrosius. Um,
Which really surprised me because I was like I was already surprised because they were set up as queer from the get go, like very
mhm.
blatantly, and I was like, huh, you don't see that very often.
That
And
doesn't,
then they like kept reinforcing the relationship,
yeah,
and I was like, oh,
yeah, that doesn't
oh,
surprise me when it comes to Netflix stuff. Netflix isn't shy about um, having gay characters.
true, true,
If it
true.
was on anything else, I might have been a little bit more worried, especially if it was on like on Disney Plus, like it was originally supposed to be.
Yeah,
Then it
yeah.
100% would have been neutered. But yeah, Annapurna has now created an animation studio led by former co-presidents of Blue Sky, Andrew Milstein and Robert Bard, and I'm excited to see what they make next.
Same.
Yeah, this movie was good, but moving on to comics, I actually had to reread Nimona after watching it because I haven't read it since I was in middle school. So in the comic, Ballister is a villain, has already been a villain for years, and actually leans more into the role, despite the fact that similar to the movie, he was forced into it. Um,
Right.
but he's been a villain for years, and he's leaning into it as he tries to like show everybody why the institution is evil. Um, and the way he loses his arm in the comic is different.
Oh,
It's in the joust with Ambrosius. Exactly how, I don't want to go into details just because you want to read it, but
right.
it's different. And Nimona is much more guarded about their past and their origin, and it's their origin is a little bit more mysterious and questionable. Whereas I feel like in this one, it's a little bit more cut and dry. Well, not exactly, because it's still like shown that like you don't necessarily know where Nimona came from. You just know Nimona exists in
Right.
the movie. You just like Nimona suddenly existed, and is able to and is doesn't have a true form, like, or if Nimona does have a true form, we don't know what it is. Um,
Right.
so it's mysterious in that sense, but I feel like it, to me, in a comic, it felt a little bit more mysterious because Nimona purposely lies about it. Like I
Mm,
said, she's more guarded about it. So Nimona purposely tells people, different versions of their origin story. So
right. Right.
yeah,
Right.
comic's good, the art's good. Andy Stevenson, amazing. I
I've
did,
seen it.
yeah, I found out that he worked on She-Ra. Well, not just worked on, was the showrunner for the She-Ra remake on Netflix, which I've watched most of, but I haven't gotten around to finishing the last season. I kind of just fell off. I might finish it one day. But
I
yeah,
was gonna say, I think I enjoyed Nimona so much because the the art reminds me, and this is like a kind of far fetched. The art reminds me of this game. This like I don't even know what kind of like what genre of game this is. It's called the Yogg, and it's fairly old from like I think like 2014, and it has that like sketchy medieval style, and I enjoy the Og to pieces, even though like I said it's a very old game. But the art of the Nimona comics reminded me of that, and I think that like heightened my experience a little bit. It's like, oh, this feels like Og, and it helped me connect with it a little bit more. So yeah, that's neat.
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking at the Yogg now, and I see what you mean.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's definitely a similar art style.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
kind of reminds me, looking at it, of Samurai Jack a little bit too.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, choose your own adventure game. That's what it's called. Like Monster Prom Camp Road Trip, which is probably what more people are familiar with. But yeah, the Yogg walked or ran, so Monster Prom could walk. I love the Yogg. You should play that game, even though it's from 2013. It's like $3 on Steam right now.
Yeah. Also, Nimona's great. Read it. Watch it. It's on Netflix, and also, if you subscribe to Kindle Unlimited, or you already have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, you can read it for no additional cost, which is what I
Nice.
did because there was like I'm on and off subscriber of Kindle Unlimited and Comixology Unlimited, which I don't understand why they're separate. They're
That,
both owned by Amazon, and they're both giving you access to a library of books. I don't understand why they don't just combine them. It's
Jeff Bezos.
ridiculous. Also, screw that. Also, just combine it with Amazon Prime. Like,
Right.
I don't have Amazon Prime. I use it every now and again, but I just don't want to have a bunch of subscriptions. If you were to bundle all three of those together, hell, even if you just bundled Kindle and Comics out together, I might have it, you know, on a regular basis. But if you
Right.
bundled it with Prime, I would just straight up subscribe to Prime permanently, because I would also be
Yeah.
able to read a bunch of comics and get discount on a bunch of comics. I read most of my comics digitally, and any comics that I'm not reading through the DC Universe app, I'm reading on Comixology. So
Right.
yeah, world's finest. Robot Revolution begins, led by New Mazo, which is an upgraded version of a Mazo, which is a robot that can mimic the powers of superheroes. And he's forced the world's greatest engineers to build them a robot army. This is Batman Superman World's Finest. City Boy, another DC comic, a new DC comic. Cameron gets caught in an explosion of a machine that's meant to communicate with cities as if they're living organisms, and gains the ability to communicate, interact, and interface with cities, which is very interesting power set that I'm excited to see expanded upon. Icon versus Hardware. We see Icon's home planet and what he looked like before he permanently transformed into a black man. As weird as that sounds, in the beginning of his solo comic, he crash landed on Earth during slavery, and mimicked the first person he saw, which was a black woman. So he turned himself into a black man, and I think he lost his powers for a few years, so he essentially had to live as a slave for a while. So despite technically being an alien, I think if you land on Earth, transform into someone so that you can blend in, and then get forced to be a slave, at that point, I think it's okay for you to be black.
Yeah. All right.
Superman. Lex Luthor turned LexCorp into SuperCorp to supposedly help Superman, and Superman has reluctantly chosen to play along to stop two new supervillains from Lex's past. Meanwhile, these new villains have captured Silver Banshee and are forcing her to work with them. And in the midst of her fighting Superman, Jimmy Olsen jumps in the middle and proclaims his love for her. So I'm interested. I don't know. I don't think a new issue's out yet, but I'm excited to see where that goes. Silver Banshee is just superhero or a supervillain that has like screaming powers. But the way they're depicted, because she got like an upgrade from these new villains, and the way they're depicted by I think Jamal Campbell, the artist in this Superman run, is amazing. Where she like can create like when she screams, it creates these like kind of like ghosts that come out and grab Superman. It's really cool. I have to like send you a screenshot of it. It looks really cool. Also read Green Arrow. After the events of a crossover that I did not read, Green Arrow is stranded on an alien planet with his niece Leanne, where he continues to just be a superhero in space fighting aliens, while Black Canary and Arsenal try to find him and save him. Daredevil Yellow, I finished that up. I talked about it a little bit last episode. It is a love story with a predetermined ending because Daredevil is writing a letter to his deceased girlfriend, Karen Page, where he recounts his origin and the evolution of their relationship. Daredevil's yellow and red costume is his best costume. It's my favorite costume of his. I just like yellow a lot. It's such a good costume. I need to see a proper version of that in live action at some point. They did a version of it in She-Hulk on Disney Plus, but it was just his costume from the Netflix series recolored, and I'm like, nah, I need you to make a new costume and utilize those colors properly. Superman Blue, also by Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb, just like Daredevil Yellow is, and very similar to Daredevil Yellow. It is about Spider-Man reflecting on his life, but through an audio recording for his deceased girlfriend Gwen Stacy. So they wrote two Marvel stories that were basically very similar with Daredevil and Spider-Man. Last but not least, I read Spider-Man Life Story, which is basically written by Chip Zdarsky. It's basically what if Spider-Man aged regularly, starting from the year he was created in the 60s. And it focuses a lot on war, and at the beginning is about like the Vietnam War, and Superman is like, I have the, great power comes great responsibility. Should I be going to Vietnam? Should I be fighting in this war? And ultimately he doesn't. And it's very interesting to see, like, what would Spider-Man's life be like if he just lived that for that entire period of time that he's existed from, I think this story came out 2019, so it took place between the mid-60s to 2019. Moving on to TV and film, we saw on-set photos of Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. And Hugh Jackman is in the classic blue and yellow Wolverine costume. Finally. And it looks really good.
It does. It does.
There's been a little bit of a debate online about the fact that he has sleeves. Wolverine doesn't usually have sleeves. He usually just has the gloves.
There's a reason for that, though.
Yeah. Even though I follow on Instagram, he has been working out and he is jacked again. So it's like... He looks more than good enough to rock it without sleeves. But the reason it probably has sleeves is because he's like, I'm old and I'm not dehydrating myself anymore to play this character. So just cover me up.
Yeah, and he's real I flubbed that all the way up. He's real susceptible to skin cancer. So they took that in mind.
So yeah, he's just, he's playing his character as a much older man, so it makes sense. But yeah, it looks good. Deadpool's costume was also updated a little bit, especially with the red is much brighter. It was much more, much darker and more kind of diluted in the last two films. This is one of the very few cases where the MCU has made a costume brighter. They tend to make the colors in certain costumes kind of washed out. But their costume design have been getting better and better as the years go by. They've never been bad. They've just been, in my opinion, over-designed, and they're starting to make them a lot more simple, and I like that. This will be Deadpool's MCU debut, and it's going to be full of a bunch of meta jokes. It's going to be as meta as possible. A lot of theories going around is that, this will most definitely will be probably like a swan song for Fox's old X-Men universe, and supposedly a bunch of characters from that old X-Men universe will be making an appearance in this film. So I'm excited to see how they do that. Because Hugh Jackman did say, like years ago, that the only way he'll play Wolverine again is if he gets to play Wolverine in the MCU, and he's playing Wolverine again in the MCU. And this will probably, I want to say this will probably be his last time, but I don't know. Maybe he'll make cameos, like small cameos in the future. But this will be his last time probably playing the character as like the main character of the film.
Right. With the small cameos of other X-Men you mentioned, it's very far-fetched, but every time they mention other X-Men, I have my fingers crossed for a Jubilee feature. She's my favorite. I love her.
Yeah, she was unfortunately in one of the worst X-Men movies in X-Men Apocalypse.
I know. It's such a shame that they did her dirty like that.
Yeah, so X-Men is just I watched a little bit of the 90s cartoon when I was a kid, and most of my X-Men experience has been through the movies and a little bit, just a tiny bit of comics. I actually read Joss Whedon's run on X-Men, The Astonishing X-Men, like a year or two ago. And yeah, X-Men is just daunting to get into because X-Men alone could, like, it, I was going to say it could be, but it literally was its own cinematic universe. But even then, in comics, it could be its own universe. And for the most part, the X-Men are in their own little bubble inside the Marvel comics and have just a lot going on. So if I ever want to get an X-Men, it's gonna take a lot, and I'm gonna have to have some time and actually dedicate time to it. So I like.
And it's funny,
X-Men,
right?
But I'm just not deep into it.
That's real. It's funny because I'm the exact opposite. The rest of the MCU is like ancient runes to me. Don't know nothing about it. X-Men? I have watched the entirety of the 90s cartoon back to front at least 3 times. Watched the reboot that was on not Cartoon Network, Nicktoons back to front at least twice. Like, I haven't read many of the comics, but my uncle, who is huge into X-Men, like, owns first editions of a whole bunch of them. So when I'm at his house, I'll flip through them. Like, it's my family are more X-Men fans than they are actual MCU fans, and I find that hilarious.
Yeah, the X-Men are very interesting characters. I'm excited to see them finally make their way into the MCU.
Yeah.
David Cornsweet has been cast as Superman, and Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane for Superman Legacy, written and directed by James Gunn. I don't know much about either of them, but Cornsweet was a popular fan cast because he played a sweet farm boy in some film or show. So I trust in James Gunn. Like I said before, he just hasn't missed when it comes to superhero stuff. All the Guardians movies are easily some of the best movies in the MCU. The Suicide Squad is great. He just doesn't miss when it comes to this stuff. So, especially after watching Guardians 3 and the way he handles those characters, just makes me really excited for Superman Legacy to be the first movie in this new DC extended universe, as they call it. So Superman Legacy, some more casting news has come out. Like right after we finished recording, so I'm gonna add this into the episode. Nathan Fillion has been cast as Green Lantern Guy Gardner, Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl, and Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific. So Eddie Gathegi, hold on, let me make sure it's Eddie and not Edu, because I have it spelled both ways. Okay, it's Eddie. So Eddie previously played a superhero in actually an X-Men movie. He played Darwin in X-Men First Class, the mutant with the ability to adapt to anything, and was famously killed in that movie despite basically being invincible. Yes.
Meme resurfaced on Twitter?
Yes. Well, it hasn't resurfaced. That meme has, well, granted, I follow a lot of comic book people on Twitter, so that meme is posted constantly, all the time. Comic book people are always posting that meme on Twitter. I've seen that meme more times than I've seen that movie, and that movie's good.
Right. I was about to say, because I guess it must have escaped containment or something, because I started to see it, and I'm not in comic book spaces at all.
It's because of this. It's because he just got cast as Mr. Terrific that's happened. Yeah. And Isabella Merced played Dora in that live action Dora movie.
I forgot that was even a thing.
Yeah. And Nathan Fillion he's Nathan Fillion. You know who Nathan Fillion is. Everybody knows Nathan Fillion is. And he's the perfect person to play Guy Gardner. Who's known as basically the asshole Green Lantern. Nathan Fillion,
Mm.
he'll definitely do wonders in that role. Um, Mr. Terrific and Hawkgirl though have been high on my list of characters that I want the average consumer to learn more about. So I couldn't be more hyped to see these two on the big screen. What is it? I think I first saw both of them, but Hawkgirl especially in the Justice League animated series and Justice League Unlimited. She's that Justice League consists of her, of course, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, John Stewart, Martian Manhunter, and The Flash, Wally West. And yeah, I've loved Hawkgirl ever since. She's really dope in that. But she has a very complicated history in the comics. There are
Ah.
several different versions of the characters. Sometimes she's an alien, from this race of spacefaring warriors called Thanagarians from planet Thanagar. Sometimes she is an Egyptian woman who gets reincarnated with her husband over and over again. And based on the fact that the woman playing Hawkgirl is Latina, I can only assume this will be Kendra Saunders, who is the only of the many versions of Hawkgirl who is Latina, and she specifically is a woman who I'm not sure exactly how they'll do this, if they'll do this, but she essentially the character commits suicide, and her ancestor, who is the person who gets reincarnated over and over again as Hawkwoman, essentially her soul enters her body after she dies, and she has all the memories of Kendra, but all of the abilities of herself as the reincarnation of that superhero, and it's and to me that's very interesting. I would love to see them adapt that specifically. It's just a matter of comic book movies. Granted, this is James Gunn is helming this whole thing, so I trust him more than I do most people. But I feel like comic book movies don't have the best track record of handling super heavy topics. But
Yeah.
with the right writers and directors, they could do a great job with a Hawkgirl show or movie, or if she's a main character in something and touching on that aspect of her character, the fact that she killed herself in that she was essentially brought back to life and has to deal with the consequences of what happened.
Yep.
So that could be
Well,
interesting.
came back wrong.
But yeah, James Gunn says that the story will still be focusing on Clark and Lois, of course. But
Right.
so I don't expect them to play huge roles, but I'm glad that they're here nonetheless. And it makes it feel like that maybe the main Justice League members in this universe might be pulling from the Justice League cartoon, which is the version of Justice League that a lot of people grew up with, including
Yep.
myself.
Love Justice League Unlimited.
So I watched The Witcher season 3 part 1 just before I rewatched season 2, and just as good as it was the first time. This season really focuses on Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer's relationship as they become a family, the maternal bond building between Yennefer and Ciri, and Geralt's paternal relationship with Ciri growing even more, as well as the rekindling of the romance between Geralt and Yennefer. This was only the first half of the second season. The second half is releasing July 27th. And I'm also reading The Witcher books. I think I'm on book 3, or, yeah, book 3, which is the first of the proper novels, whereas the first two books are collections of short stories. Book 3 is the beginning of them shifting into actual novel format. And because of that, I love being able to recognize what they're pulling from the books and how they're changing it to fit TV and the story that they're telling. It's really cool to notice those things. It sucks that this will be Henry Cavill's last season as Geralt.
Aww.
He left the show because he felt like the story was drifting too far from source material. And Liam Hemsworth, the brother of Thor actor Chris Hemsworth, will be replacing Henry Cavill as Geralt. And it's said that the transition will be smooth and and it's going to make sense within the rules of the world. I don't know what that means, but I guess I'll see at the end of the season. Hopefully, the show continues to be strong despite the drastic change in main characters, or at least actors playing the main characters. But he's the only one being recast. But there was one character that isn't. Well, I guess they're a relatively big character. They're a villain that was recast, and I noticed, and I was like, "What happened? The other dude was so good." But the new dude, he did fine as well. Moving on to video games. I watched somebody play Diablo 4, and it made me
Oh,
realize.
no.
Yeah. It made me realize I think it's out. How similar it is to Hades. Um,
Mm.
and that made me think about a Hades multiplayer game and how cool that would be.
Ooh,
Imagine they make a third Hades, because Hades 2 is undoubtedly going to do really well. So if they decide to make a third Hades at some point, what if you play as both Zagreus and his sister, and it's co-op?
that would be fun.
That would be cool. Um,
Very
but I sent you a trailer for Mortal Kombat 1, the Lin Kuei trailer. It focused on the in-universe ninja clan, the Lin Kuei, and it showed off more of Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and it reveals Rain and Smoke as playable characters, as well as Sector, Cyrax, and Frost as cameo assist characters. Smoke in this is voiced by Yuri Lowenthal, uh, most famous for playing Spider.
that man is in everything. I swear he
Yeah,
is.
most famous for playing Spider-Man in the PS4 games, voicing Sasuke in the Naruto dub, and Teenage Ben 10 and Alien Force, Ultimate Alien, and Omniverse.
Persona 3 protagonist as
Yeah.
well.
Oh, yeah. That as well. Yeah, he's voiced a lot of characters over the years. Um, but yeah, Smoke looks good. Smoke hasn't been in a game since I think he was a robot in X, but he hasn't been in his human form since Mortal Kombat 9 in like 2011.
Oh,
So it's been over 10 years since we've seen Smoke proper. So it's excited to have Smoke back. So in this universe, Liu Kang is a god and he's messed with time and changed things. And Scorpion and Sub Zero are siblings. Whether Scorpion is Hanzo Hasashi, the original Scorpion, or because this Sub Zero is the original Sub Zero, Bihan, there's a chance that I don't think it's the case, but some people think that maybe Scorpion is actually the second Sub Zero in this, Kuai Liang, instead of being Hanzo Hasashi. But we'll see when the game comes out. And I like story modes in the Mortal Kombat games; they're really fun, especially since Mortal Kombat 9. Um, yeah, Rain is very different as well. He uses a staff and is kind of like a bit of like a water sorcerer versus being more like a water bender like he was in Mortal Kombat 11 and 9. So it's interesting to see how he's changed. Yeah. Moving on to Cookie Cutter. Did you get to check out that gameplay trailer?
it, and it looks
It
fantastic.
looks real good. Like I've said before, he plays an android named Cherry in this game who's attempting to save her girlfriend. It's a hack and slash Metroidvania, and the variety of weapons and being able to switch between them on the fly makes it feel like a Devil May Cry or Bayonetta type game, but in 2D.
It also has, uh, like, it feels like, I know it's a hack and slash Metroidvania, but it feels very like beat 'em up to me, which I really like beat 'em up games. Streets of Rage 3 is like one of my favorite Sega games of all time. So it's like that's exciting to see this kind of like all this genre overlap.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm actually not sure if this will be on console. Hopefully it is. I want to check it out. So let's talk about Tears of the Kingdom. You've been playing
Uh,
it, and we didn't get a chance to talk about it last episode. So how is it? What's your experience been like? How far are you into it?
enjoying it. Not very. The tutorial, the beginning tutorial, like island part, as much as I hate to call it that, is very long, like very long. It makes sense why, but I was stuck there for like a very a good chunk of time. But getting into the actual game itself, I'm having fun with it. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. Um, I think I like it more than Breath of the Wild. Mostly because I like the mechanics slightly better. Like it feels like the abilities you get from Link's arm like have more use than the Sheikah Slate abilities in Breath of the Wild, which is greatly appreciated because it's like they were so utilitarian. It's like bomb this, cryo this, stasis this, and it's like with the arm abilities you can really think outside the box, and it makes the game feel a lot more like open to me anyway.
Yeah. So you say early on you're past a little bit past the what do you call it, the Great Sky Island.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
I assume you gotten like the paraglider or anything yet?
Trying to remember because it's been a minute. I don't think so.
Oh, so you're super early. You haven't got the paraglider. Well, technically, you could go a while without getting paraglider if you just miss the quest where you get it, which some people have done.
That happens a lot in Zelda games where it's like a quest to get something that you really need, but it's really easy to miss, and it's like it's endearingly annoying because it's like, you're telling me I could have gotten this thing XYZ amount of time ago, and I just didn't notice. But then it also is like this thing of like, oh, Zelda.
Yeah. Well, despite the fact you are nowhere near beating it, I want to talk about what's next for the Zelda universe. So, I want to talk about just based on what you know. Well, what do you know? Before I
I know
say this one
quite a
thing,
fair bit.
because
Yeah, I know quite a fair
because
bit.
I'm not going to spoil you the story. There's just a
Right.
gameplay mechanic that I didn't want to spoil with the sages, if you know about them.
Vaguely. I'm not. Story spoilers is mostly what I'm avoiding. Gameplay spoilers, it's like whatever.
Well,
I'll
it's
get to it.
uh, what is it the sage abilities? You know about those?
I don't. Tell me more.
Oh, you don't. I'm not sure if I want to spoil them for you. Dang. Well, I don't want to talk about that no more. Because I would spoil it for you if you don't know. I want you to be surprised when it happens. But so I'm gonna talk about Final Fantasy 16. Like I said, finished it this morning. Spent all night and this morning finishing up the game. I did all the side quests that I had left uh, yesterday, and then this morning I played through the rest of the game. Well, first I was going through. There's these things called notorious marks where you go and fight specific enemies for money and stuff. And I wanted to complete all of those so I can get the material I needed to get uh, the strongest sword in the game and some other armor stuff before I went fought the final boss. And did that, and yeah, this was a good game. It was real fun. The side quests got better and better as the game went on. They really let you get to know the inhabitants of the world of Velisthea, and yeah, they just get real personal with all the side characters. They really let you get to know a good chunk of them, especially like the leaders in specific communities throughout the world. It is like what they call a wide linear game where it's mostly like a linear for the most part, but there are some sections where the map opens up a little bit and you get to explore, semi-open world. Interweaved within the story about racism and environmentalism that I mentioned last time. Uh, it's also about what it means to be human, with the main antagonist that essentially is above everything that's going on is this godlike figure, and that was really cool. Like I said before about the combat, unleashing all of your iconic abilities on an enemy after you stagger them, it feels great, but the game doesn't really encourage you to think much or to switch up the way you play. You pretty much just dodge, attack, and do iconic abilities, and repeat until whoever is dead. Um, uh, and it's also it's not the hardest game in the world. You do unlock a new difficulty mode after you beat the game, but you have to beat the game to get that. You know, like I said before as well, the RPG mechanics just could be better. Like I went to get the new sword because it does more damage, but like I feel like just comparing it to a game like God of War, it's so weird that God of War was this quintessential hack and slash and has become so much more of an RPG, whereas Final Fantasy is in this game is going more hack and slash, and the RPG stuff is just little to thought existent really. And I wish that the you could customize the character's armor a little bit more, and weapons and all that. And I wish there were more slots for iconic abilities, because you hold the trigger and then press square or triangle to perform them, but X like doesn't do anything. I feel like X could have been something that could have been a third iconic ability for each of the three slots you have. Um,
Yeah.
so I feel like it was kind of limiting in that place because I was like, I want to use more abilities, but I just chose the abilities I like and I stuck with those. I didn't really switch up that often. Soundtrack's real good. The battle theme especially is great. I could listen to that battle theme forever, and I have because it plays every time you fight something. So, yeah, you got it. Like the battle theme has to be good. If I'm gonna hear this every
Yeah.
single time I fight an enemy, it's got to be good. Uh, the boss fights are insane. They gradually get bigger and bigger until they get ridiculous. Last time I talked about this one boss fight that I'm not going to spoil. It's just it's stupid. It's so good. It's crazy how big these boss fights get. I was only disappointed in one of them because we didn't get to fight one of the dominants as our icon versus theirs, like we did all the other dominants. But the fight was still good. I was just disappointed that I just didn't get to fight them in that way.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it's a good game. I would give it like a. I was gonna say out of 10. I don't even go out of 10 anymore. I go out of 5. Let me see, like a 4 out of 5. I guess I would give this a game. It's 4 out of 5. It's a good game. It's a fun game. I'm curious to see what they're gonna do with the next game. Probably won't see a new Final Fantasy for like 5 years or something like that. At
Oh
least
yeah.
like a new numbered game. We're gonna get the remakes of 7, of course. And who knows if we'll get a remake of any other Final Fantasy game at some point. But
Right.
if they do, I wonder if they're gonna switch it up completely again, or if they're gonna continue on this kind of action focused route, and if it'll be made by business creative business unit 3, who also worked on 14 like 16 was. And if so, I hope that they expand on the RPG stuff as well as make the combat and enemies a bit more diverse, so that you're encouraged to switch things up every now and again or fight different enemies in different ways, because in the game you just fight all the same enemies the exact same way and you don't have to think about switching anything up ever. um,
Uh,
so I would like for it to be a bit different in that way, because I'm gonna keep comparing it to God of War because it's such a good comparison, because they're both these hack and slash RPGs, and God of War does a good job of encouraging you to fight different enemies different ways and use your different weapons for specific enemy types, and throwing different enemy types. Ragnarok especially, they took a criticism that the first game had of not having enough variety in enemies and greatly expanded the variety, and you're forced to think differently when you're fighting different enemies, and I would like to see that from the next action focused hack and slash Final Fantasy game. But yeah, good game
yeah.
overall. Like I said, 4 out of 5. That's great. But yeah, that's all I got. As usual, you can find my ads below me, Aiara's at below them. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more storytelling content, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. Peace.